free, and there are lots of opportunities for networking, seeking of placements, seeking of potential employment opportunities. Excuse me, and as a reminder, several students last year closed out their dissertations at EcoBuild, closed out their dissertations because they found a sufficient range of professional personnel to question, to interview, and to, as I say, help them in terms of concluding their subject. It doesn't apply to you all, but that is just a reminder. On each of your Moodle sites right now, there is an additional lecture. I say an additional lecture. The building surveyors have already been lectured by Mervyn Richards as part of their management course. This is predominantly for part-time students. It's for you because you need to know slightly more about BIM and soft landings in order to close out this part of your assignment. As I say, building surveyors have already been lectured by Mervyn. And because he's hugely good value, I can only get him at certain times of the day, and I can only get him as part of a CIOB deliverable right now. But this is specifically for you. It's at Maritime Campus, but note it's at 6 o'clock in the evening. However, he is the author of all best practice pertinent to BIM. So my recommendation is you go, you attend. That's for your information. Your previous assignment, the early part of this assignment, was particular to stakeholders. I've got all of your videos uploaded. I haven't yet started the marking process. However, I just want to give you a really good example of stakeholder management and communication. So, managing stakeholder expectations. Some 2 weeks ago, we were sent this, we as members of staff. So, giving us a date, telling us a firm date, telling us the date that Stockwell Street will be open. Not only telling us that, and this is to all university staff, but giving us 3 opportunities to be updated, to give us the opportunity to ask questions, and as the words say, giving all university staff the opportunity to learn about the building and the changes. So we fast forward a few days, and another example of managing stakeholder expectations. So, 20th of February, we're going. 27th of February, we're not going. Stakeholder management, managing expectations. Doesn't affect you if you're not going anywhere. Okay.
Does that affect our assignment?
Might do. Might will do. Some of us are moving, some of us aren't. So, without further ado, I'm now going to introduce you to Laura MacDonald. Laura is your real client. She is, as the words say, she is the Deputy Campus Facilities Manager, and she will be taking, or she already takes on board in some respects, Stockwell Street. She is on the same learning curve as we are as staff in terms of the new premises, the new estate. Those tasks I have given to you, tasks in terms of collaboration management, tasks in terms of handover and commissioning, tasks in terms of use of BIM and soft landings. Laura has those tasks and challenges for real. Part of your assignment is to come up with those deliverables. What should she do? What should happen for real? However, if you come up with something substantive, if you come up with something fairly innovative, rest assured, Laura may be coming back to you because she needs your advice and input for real. What I've asked Laura to do is, before she presents particular to Stockwell Street, I've asked her to give you a little bit of a resume as to her career to date, so that you appreciate that FM is not simply about the university. Okay, any questions or queries before we start? all reasonably happy? Okay, Laura.
Hey, good morning everyone. As Christine pointed out, I work down at the Greenwich campus. I've actually only been there for 4 months, so it has been quite a steep learning curve. My second day, there was a big meeting at Stockwell Street. It all became a bit clearer how big this building was and what we were taking on. This is just the contents of what I'll talk through this morning. A bit of introduction, background, where I've worked up until 4 months ago. Talk about the Stockwell Street project, migration management, and things that I think you've got in your assignment already, data transfer, asset management, and then just conclude and ask you if you've got any questions. Basically, yeah, I've done similar things to you guys actually, I think. My interpretation is I worked in the paper industry in Kent until I was about 23. And then I decided that I was going to go and get a degree, so I continued to work in the paper industry and studied part-time. And the conclusion of which I managed to get a job at the National Gallery in their Building and Facilities Department, working in the technical services side. It's quite well developed, I'll touch on that in a bit, it's quite well developed technical services because they've got really close control of the environment there because of the paintings. And whilst I was there, I did a Master's in Facilities Management at UCL, did that, I think it was like a Tuesday afternoon once a week over 2 years, and then followed that up with a building surveying postgraduate diploma through the College of Estate Management, again remote learning and going for kind of Saturdays every month to Reading, which I can't recommend, but and now I've ended up here at the University of Greenwich, so I started in November, so still fairly new, or that's my excuse at the moment. How long I can use that for, I don't know. The National Gallery is, as I think a lot of you know, in central London, right on Trafalgar Square here. Got 2,300 paintings, all in one building on that one site. And this is the key thing for the Building Facilities Department there, it's the environmental conditions. We lent a lot of paintings out and we borrowed a lot of paintings, and you have to prove that you're keeping them in an environment that people continue to lend them to you and that you're keeping them according to the government indemnity scheme, because we didn't insure any paintings. They're kind of priceless really, I don't know how you put a premium on a Van Gogh or whatever, but the government puts certain provisions on you. Mainly looked after building, plant maintenance, project work, utility and energy management. Things, the normal FM things like cleaning, porterage, office moves. We were freeholders, so we also had an office building adjacent to us, which we looked after. Staff catering and health and safety, disaster planning, and also exhibition builds. There's about 10 exhibitions a year, so we manage those minor projects as well. But we did actually have quite a small department compared to one I've now moved into at Greenwich. Essentially just the head of department, technical services section, building, fire safety, a CAD technician, and help desk, and that was really about all there was to it, which is fairly small considering the amount of money we had. Usually about £10 million spent every year, so we had quite a lot on, it's safe to say, but we did actually outsource mainly, which is a bit different to the University of Greenwich. There's a mix here, whereas we had a measured term contract for building fabric, which was tendered, I think it's a 5-year term. Basically all work was measured. There was no day works, there's no hourly rate, it was all on a measure. The M&E contract, however, was a fully comprehensive one, which they took all responsibility for M&E, but they also took responsibility for some subcontractors that we appointed, actually, like the lift contractor, BMS, had a train system there. And I've put other bit M&E services, I can't really think of them off the top of my head, but things like Legionella testing and the normal. Cleaning, porterage and postal term contract, again, done through the O2 process on a 5-year term, and fire and security systems. Obviously it's quite a big deal in an art gallery, fire and security, something we tend to worry about quite a lot. These are some of the more unusual projects perhaps to look after. If you ever get a job in an art gallery, it's a lot easier to deal with dead artists than it is with live ones who come along with ideas like this. And they have these wonderful ideas, and all you can think about is health and safety and fire and electrical testing, and they think you're a right pain, to be honest, because all you come up with is reasons why we won't want to do this. But once they're done, this is another idea. They decided to build a bathroom in a gallery. You do kind of think, could you not just paint a painting? But there we go. It was a nice environment to work in, though. As you can see, the rooms are nice. We did a lot of roofing projects, basically undoing a lot of kind of refurbishments that were done post-war to try and restore the building. This is about a 25-year programme that we were trying to work through, about 60 odd galleries to restore all the plasterwork, lighting, glazing, and try and improve the environment basically so it was all daylit rather than lit by artificial light, putting in LEDs, usual energy saving measures. This is the bit that took up a lot of the energy and a lot of the projects, was the control of the temperature. It's really tightly controlled to 23 degrees in the summer, 21 in the winter, and it changes incrementally between the two. Humidity is also controlled, so it's 55%, which has quite high humidity. So you've got artificial humidification of the space happening. This is all because during the war the pictures went to a slate mine in Wales and it was really humid, and they thought, oh, they liked that, so we're going to continue doing that forevermore. Unfortunately, it costs an absolute fortune in energy. But this is basically a week. You've got lights going on, off, the temperature and humidity. So you can see it's really reliant on the BMS system, really reliant on a constant supply of energy, and a few massive oil tanks backing up in case the heating ever went down. And this is my new office window view, which I'm quite pleased with. Again, working in some nice buildings down at the Maritime campus. University of Greenwich is obviously still an FM department. There are a few differences and it's got a broader remit basically. We have things like accommodation, we have transport, which I've never had before. Catering and conference services are within the FM remit at Greenwich. The way that it's set up is that we have 3 campus teams, so Medway, Maritime Greenwich and Avery Hill all have an equivalent of me, an equivalent of my manager, an equivalent of our technical services guy. And then we have a central team, so we have central team surveyors, central technical team, central administration team. So that's how it's kind of evolved. It's quite different from me dealing with different campuses. That's been quite a novelty from having one building to look after to now dealing with lots of different buildings. Even within my own campus, we've got quite a spread of different buildings. We deal with post services, security. I'm grateful not to deal with space management. There's a team at Avery Hill that deal with that. But sports and recreation, grounds maintenance, got quite a well-developed sustainability team here, which I haven't dealt with before. And things like car parking. Working in central London, there's like one parking space and it's a fight to the death to get it. But here, there's a lot more ground. And you see, this is the department I work in now. I didn't know half of my own department. It's so massive compared to what I've come from. But basically, I am one of these people here. And there's a few people that I work with down at Greenwich that you can see. It's pretty widespread. The buildings themselves are quite impressive. As you can see down the bottom, we're a scheduled monument, which makes life sometimes quite difficult actually, because even we're not allowed to do things like put these on the wall, we can't even kind of put up, you know, the new HSE poster. I've got to write to English Heritage to say, can I put a nail in the wall to put this poster up before? It's really hard to explain to people and they think that we're being terribly difficult, but basically it's on a par with the Tower of London and Stonehenge, so you can imagine you wouldn't probably go and stick a nail into those, so I guess I have to think in those ways that we can't do that at Greenwich either. You can see the kind of pertinent dates there. I don't know much about the history yet, but this is the oldest part, which is the Tudor Palace underneath the Queen Anne building. The Dreadnought building will be vacated in September, hopefully, to go to Stockwell Street, so we're hoping to do a major project on that. I haven't actually heard what the details of that project will be yet, but I'm still waiting. We are actually a leaseholder or tenant to the Greenwich Foundation. So again, as well as informing English Heritage every time we do something, we have to inform the Greenwich Foundation and run it by them. At the moment we're having discussions with them about hot works permits. They'd like us to do no hot works at all, we've pointed out that that may not be practical, so we've got to come to some kind of solution with them. There's a few kind of compare and contrast between the two environments. National Gallery is Grade 1 listed, and there are a lot of planning constrictions, but it's not even in the same league as the Old Royal Naval College. It's which is a scheduled monument, another step up, and within the wider World Heritage Site of Greenwich itself. There's a lot of visitors through the door, but there's a high demand on space at the university, both of which mean you can't do a lot of work during the day. You end up getting contractors in overnight, weekends, obviously more expensive, which is a shame, but that's how it is. As I mentioned, gallery is a single site, one building, no expansion, very little outside space. That's all there is to it. It's not very much scope for expansion unless they start buying adjacent properties. Whereas Greenwich is a multiple site operation, and even within Greenwich itself, you've got Hamilton House, you've got Dreadnought, you've got Cooper Buildings, the Student Union, and the Devonport House. And I kind of hear that there's quite a lot of scope for expansion. There's quite a lot of plans to develop the site and move things on, which is good. It's good for me. It's exciting. Again, freeholder tenant, I've mentioned, both formerly PSA managed. So up until the late 80s, my memory's not that good, but I think that it was one of the Thatcher or Conservative changes to devolve power back to organisations where they used to be managed by the Central Public Services Authority. And there are still some characters in our department who are old PSA people who've been at the organisation since then. This is one thing that I've had to get used to actually at Greenwich, is I've inherited quite a lot of direct labour, which I've never had before, so which is quite good in some way. You get somebody, you get a painter, just go and paint everything. It's effectively free because you're just paying their wages. On the other hand, it means that you have to manage that labour. So, you know, it's horses for courses, everything has its benefits. Again, we don't really have many term contracts at the University of Greenwich, so we will have a contract with our HVAC contractor. We'll have a contract with, say, somebody to come in and do the emergency light testing. We actually tender these all out on a separate basis, and that's something we're looking at because I'm not convinced, and I don't think a lot of my colleagues are convinced that that's the most efficient way to work. It takes a lot of management, it takes a lot of time, and I'm not sure that we necessarily provide the service that we should do. In terms of things like reactive maintenance, I think if we had a term contractor on site, you could just raise a help desk rec and something gets sorted quite quickly. Whereas because we have to kind of get quotes for everything and get people to come in, it can be more time consuming, which means that we don't necessarily react as quickly as I would like sometimes. Okay, Stockwell Street. As I said, my second day here, it's quite a steep learning curve. I had a meeting which involved a discussion about beehives on the roof, which I hadn't known, and how they were going to clean the windows next to the beehives. But it was made for an interesting first and second day. It's going to increase our campus size significantly. At the moment, we're based in the Queen Anne building, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with the campus. It's a fair old trek from Stockwell Street. It's a good 10 minutes each way. So, are we in the right place? I don't know. Is our office going to be out in the limb? There's all this talk about moving the centre of gravity. That's it, right in Greenwich Town Centre. We're actually more towards East Greenwich. We're going to increase the number of M&E services. At the moment, we've got an old building. Our ventilation is pretty much opening the windows, and then, yeah, don't even need to open them, to be honest. We've got quite a contrast with our existing portfolio. We've spoken about scheduled monument. These things have been there since 1690 odd, and now we're dealing with a 2014 building. Different materials, different finishes, and it will be our building, which does make it easier, except that it's still within a World Heritage Site, so we can't just adapt it as we might wish. There's an issue of culture change. I think at the moment, you might go into offices in the Greenwich campus. People have their own offices, staff. They have a nice little cellular office, and quite often they have a fridge, they have a kettle, they might even have a microwave. Stockwell Street, they're going to be in one big open plan space. That's quite culture change, and I think people find that quite difficult at times. That's something that we're actually going to be having to manage once those doors are open. I've mentioned the greater spread of the campus. There's going to be the FM fit-out it was going to become practical completion, but obviously I guess you know that that's been knocked on a bit, so now we're going to have this period where perhaps we're going to be on Osborne's site doing the FM fit-out while they're actually still the main contractor under contract. And during all of this time, in my naivety, I thought students went home in May and didn't carry on. It turns out there's quite a lot of them that work through the summer, so we've got to continue to provide a service to them, including lending them books from the library, which is going to be moving. So it's going to be quite a logistical challenge. Now, I was asked to think of the stakeholders. I've met a lot of people in a lot of meetings over the last 3.5, 4 months. So, I mean, I could have gone all day, really. You can talk about all of the students, all of the departments. I think the key stakeholders, really, obviously the library, who are moving in to half of the building. I have to admit, recently we've had a change of structure at the university. Things have gone from being schools and departments to being faculties. I didn't know what they were called before, and I'm afraid I'm still not clear on what they're called now. But I believe we're talking about the School of Construction and Architecture, or moving across.
I think they're now all completely separate departments.
Okay.
So architecture and landscape are a department, and construction are
Okay.
a department.
So obviously the academic departments that will be moving into the building as well. FM contractors. We've got existing contracts for cleaning, security, which we'll need to extend and kind of renegotiate for them to take over the building there. But we're going to have new contractors, things like sprinkler system. We don't currently have that one of those in the main building, so we're going to have to establish that. The lifts, are we going to have a new lift contractor, or are we going to use our existing maintenance team? Students, you guys, whether you'll be here or not, your successors will be next year. Neighbours, at the moment, we've got a nice big set of railings around our campus, and it gets locked at night, and we don't really have to deal with any neighbours. On the new building, they're very close, and some of them have had quite a lot of disruption. I've got some, sympathies with them, and they're people that we're going to have to keep happy once that building's handed over to us. During the handover period, HR are actually taking some control over the transfer or not transferring information to staff, as it may be. The other thing is general public. This building is intended to be open. It's intended to be a walk-in building, cafe, commercial services. There's a shop there. So we're actually a lot more open, and there's some concerns. Is there going to be antisocial behaviour? Is there going to be a greater security impact on us than there is at the moment? As you understand, I think, there has been a delay to practical completion. I think it was meant to be in January, then it was knocked back to April, and now it's going to be July the 21st, I think. I don't know about you, but I wonder, once the contract is delayed once, or twice, or even 3 times, you do wonder, is it going to happen again? There's always that concern. At the moment, we've got a programme. They say that they're working to it. We've got to assume that that's what's in place. But there is that kind of nagging doubt at the back of your mind, will it stay in place? And as I mentioned, this means that our fit-out is now going to be contiguous, if that is a word, with the end of Osborne's contract. We're not entirely clear on how that's going to work. They've got responsibility for the site, but then is it our contractors coming onto site who's going to have responsibility for looking at things like risk assessments, method statements, signing them into site, making sure that they've left site at the end of the day, making sure that they're working safely, hot works permits, all of those kind of things. It's their site, but then there are our contractors. It's not entirely clear at the moment how we resolve that. You'll notice actually on the next 3 slides, I've written commissioning about 3 times. I was obviously clearly slightly obsessed with it at the time, but the commissioning period, we've got a lot of heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems. We've got people going in and out of the building all the time. How are we going to balance the building whilst there are people in it? It'd be so nice to just have handover, do the commissioning, and then start using the building. As it is, we're going to be doing the fit-out whilst trying to do the commissioning. Not a clean process. Coordination of contractors. Oh, hello, sorry.
Sorry, what
What exactly is commission? So basically, new bit of plant going in, running through the process to make sure it works. So things like heating and ventilation, so you can balance the airflows to make sure that you've got the right temperature.
Sorry, can I just, the 21st of July is the date you get it?
Practical completion, yeah.
So you can, you'll be working there before that then?
We will.
Right.
Yes.
Have you got that date?
No, I haven't actually. So I'm going to probably be looking at somewhere starting in April doing FM fit out, because that was our original PC date.
And does that mean that the first day back on campus is still on schedule?
Yeah, at the moment, yes. Yeah. At the moment, we are working to that programme that they've given us. So September the 15th is the big opening date. And the other thing, down at the bottom is, of course, I kind of mentioned earlier that we're the campus FM team. So we look after the campus, and we look after maintenance, and we look after small to medium projects on site. The people looking after this project are from Central Services team. They are the clients, effectively. They're the project team, as far as we're concerned. They're having the project handed over to them, but actually what's going to be the process for us getting that information? Because effectively we're the ones that are going to be managing the building in the long term. So transfer of data. I don't know how much information you got from Adele about this, but when she spoke about eDocs, there's a new system at the moment that they've basically, as far as I'm aware, I've been to a training session, we have a piece of software that our ONMs, health and safety file, COSH information, all of those background documents are going to be on this eDoc system. However, what I'd be quite interested to know is, can that data be extracted? Because as far as I'm aware, you have to pay a subscription for that software, on an ongoing basis. Do we want to tie ourselves to buying that software every year for the next 10 years, or can we extract that data and have it in a multiple usable format? We have at the moment a finite contract for that, about 2 years, I think, after handover. Soft landings. There's still a few queries I have in my mind about this. How often are the contractors going to visit over the first year? I'm assuming that you have some understanding of soft landings, which is that they will continue to maintain the plant that they've put in over the first year. How often will they visit? Will they be here on site when something breaks down, or will they be coming in 2 days a month? Will it be more often than that? How is that communication going to happen? Is this thing again about we're the ultimate manager of the building, but at the moment the central team are the client. So are they going to report to them, or how is that process going to work? And sometimes I do wonder as well, if you've got a soft landing process, so here's practical completion, they're going to maintain it for the next year. Are we just delaying at a crash landing to in a year's time when they've been maintaining it for a year? What's this process going to be here about handing over that information to us in terms of the main FM team from the campus? In my dream world, you can tell me how to achieve this. What spares do we need? We haven't managed this building before, it's brand new. Do we sit there and trawl through the O&M? Do we work out what our spares list is going to be? And PPM schedule in terms of frequency of planned preventive maintenance. I'm going to be honest with you, we don't have a lot of planned preventive maintenance in place. We do all the statutory stuff, we do everything as we should, but it's something I'd really like to develop in the future and maybe use this building as a template for expanding across the campus. And yeah, there's the commissioning period again. Just ignore that. Asset management. I've kind of taken this in terms of how we're going to manage the maintenance ourselves. At the moment we use Shire's software as our help desk software. We are looking at changing that software quite soon. We have one single help desk on the campus at the moment. I think there's been discussion about having a single help desk for the university as a whole, so you phone into one point of contact. At the moment we have one for Greenwich, Avonville, Medway. And personally I wouldn't want to devolve anything to Stockwell Street. I really I'd like to see Stockwell Street as part of our campus. There's been quite a lot of talk about BRIAM, Sterling Prize, standalone building. Actually, it's another part of the Greenwich campus, and I think it's quite important for us to maintain a single point of contact, phone the help desk, and we will react to it. Maintenance strategy, as I mentioned, I'd like to get some information from the soft landing and how we communicate that between Central FM and the Campus FM over that first year, so that then we just continue with the programme onwards. And again, we talked about use of existing contractors, new installations. Are we going to go with the contractors that have installed the lifts, for example, or will we look at expanding our existing contractor to take in that building? Right, this is where I perhaps get a little bit, maybe I'll ask you not to mention this to some of my colleagues in the FM department. These are things that perhaps we might debate with our Central FM colleagues. They've run this project, and obviously they've got a budget to work to. So there's been some, inverted commas, value management. We might call it cost cutting, where things have been eliminated. Will we end up replacing those things in the future? Things like some of the cameras have been deemed unnecessary. T-points. I've already had people complaining to me about the lack of T-points. This is the kind of thing that sends people over the edge in offices. And pest proofing. Of course, architects don't like pigeon spikes, and they don't like bait boxes on the floor, but unfortunately, it's a fact of life. So, and there's also, I don't know whether we've had to deal with it before, but there is that relationship between architect and client. Effectively, I think that the building is the client, the architect is working for the client. Unfortunately, sometimes the architect doesn't see it the same way. So you wonder, and I'm kind of musing here, that there might be some retrofitting in the future. And I wonder if value management has eliminated things that we might actually have to then put in afterwards. Managing the expectations of staff, I've mentioned the kettle culture and the microwave culture. Are we going to have to manage staff working in a completely new way, in a new environment? And one, I think that some people might struggle to adapt to. And that's one of the difficulties of FM, because you are then expected to take on a project that perhaps you haven't necessarily been fully involved in the brief for. So you kind of have to bite your lip and get on with it. Extended contract and commissioning again. I don't know why I was so obsessed with those cuts. I think I'm nearly there. Yeah, in conclusion, I've spoken about the culture change. It'd be interesting to see whether these kind of cultural changes are rolled out across all of the rest of the campus and across all the rest of the university, because I can see friction if they aren't. We're going to have to increase campus footprint, new clients. We haven't dealt with the School of Architecture, Built Construction before. This talk of moving the centre of gravity to the Greenwich town, interacting, I guess, more with the community. How are we going to integrate that with our existing campus? There's only really 3 of us in the office who are managing the site at the moment. So how are we going to do that in terms of our timing, how much time we're going to spend over at Stockwell Street, and the rest of it. Increased number of M&E services. And again, that talk between the central team and how they're going to hand that information over to us. I think that was it. So has anybody got any questions?
When you were talking about your data transfer, what was that thing you said? E-docs or whatever?
E-docs, yeah, I think, sorry.
What is that?
But basically it's a commercial bit software that you can use as a search engine to put in flooring, and it'll come up with the data sheet for the flooring finish, basically. Put in chillers, and it'll come up with the Airedale information on the chillers, the O&Ms.
Why do you get that anyway from whoever's installed it?
Yeah, well I hope so, but they're doing it through this process onto this e-docs, so they'll upload it onto e-docs, and then we can go and download it, whatever, rather than getting hard copies. So it's another good question. Who's going to make sure that we do actually get that information before the book? Sometimes it takes quite a while to get that information.
That's the one that the silence really bad. Data transfer.
Getting that information. Right.
Sorry, is that something that you actually want to use, or something that you're not entirely sure?
I'm keen on getting information. I need to have the O&M, the health and safety file. My only reservation is that it's this commercial piece of software. Can we, I haven't used it yet, are we able to download it into a usable format if we choose not to renew that
Just print it out.
Get some hard copies of it.
How would you go about like providing services to the students for the library and moving it to the plan?
Good question. Well, that's part of the move management plan, which the central FM team are looking after. I think that's something that Adele would be managing. As far as I'm concerned, that's part of the central contract. They need to move the information. They're getting in professional library movers to do that.
Is it the whole of this library is going to that one?
Not the whole of Dreadnought Library. Dreadnought, the main library down at the Greenwich campus.
Oh, so not from Avery Hill then?
No. Each campus has a different
But
library.
what would be the point of keeping the architectural books here?
They might be moving as well, I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
Whether they have